Beep, 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 beep. It's time for a chat. A chat head, as they say. Here, got me coffee. I've been having a mull, right? So mull along with me. Let me get comfortable. There we are. You get comfortable, get yourself a cup of tea, have a mull with me. It's been an extraordinary week or two since Trump took over. And I was talking to some people last night, some of the warrior teachers, and you're real. It's like, wow, here comes one. Wow, here comes another one. And I've been in a sort of constant state of heightened glee as I watched as he eradicated transgenderism from the military, as I watched as he got pronouns out of all the federal. We watching this stuff come tumbling down the pipe from America, and yet organisations in Britain seem intent upon continuing going. Although I was pleased to see that the Greens have abandoned Stonewall and that Stonewall have abandoned the trans. It's just surreal, isn't it? They changed their definitions quietly, though, but nobody will notice. But I tell you now, once the gender nutters notice it, you're going to be in trouble. Not only that revolting bloke who's going to take an Oscar from a woman has found himself in terrible trouble. Not because he's a bloke stealing an Oscar from a woman, but because he isn't politically correct enough and he's been racist and horrible to people. Apparently, he went for Adele. Of all the people to go for, Adele. Leave her alone. She's chasing pavements. So, is it me? Or, I keep saying that. Is there another way to say, is it me? Am I observing? No, it doesn't sound as good, does it? Or is it just, I feel like it's the most utterly surreal time. It's utterly surreal. I just don't understand it. Trump's doing all this. Wait, meanwhile, in Manchester, they arrested a bloke for burning the Quran. I don't understand why people don't see the danger of the left as clearly as they see the danger of the right. I've seen the right, people that were fighting against gender ideology, and now the nasty ones are going to start to be able to do their thing, and they've been doing it. Well, the degenerate LGB caused all this, so you've got the right as well as the left now. Good luck with that. But this is my main concern at the moment. I sat and watched something the other day from the LGB Alliance, which was Kate Barker was on there. We know LGB Alliance, Malcolm and all those good folks that have done great things since they started a few years back and really have contributed enormously to the fight. And they were talking about the future of EDI and DIE. And I was intrigued by watching this because I thought, I'll have a look at that. Future of EDI and DIE. Not least of all because there is no future for EDI and DIE. So I sat and watched it, and I got angrier and angrier and angrier. Just sitting there, having a fume because they had these people on. These are good folk. These are our kind of folk. These are the good folk. Trying to find some way to save this rancid industry. There is no way to save this rancid industry, and I've seen others as well. Players in the game. Audrey Ludwig, fantastic on the Equality Act, fantastic on understanding it all, but just absolutely clueless. I'm saying clueless in terms of, same as the LGBT Alliance, in not recognising what we've got our hands on. They just don't get it. The same goes for the people that were in this meeting. They were talking about business and how business deals with it. Now, there's some great work being done by This Isn't Working on Twitter. Now, This Isn't Working is great fun to watch. Interviews and things with Tanya de Grunwald. Right? All right, Tanya de Grunwald and various others, which then go on to LinkedIn, and conversation takes place on LinkedIn, which is banned me. They don't like the fact that I'm so straightforward. LinkedIn, they like you to be more, keep it professional. You can call somebody a bastard. You just got to do it with 20 words instead of one. That kind of thing. So there you go. So there they are as well, right? And people still don't get it. They still don't get it. So I'm going to start screaming about MITE, meritocracy, intelligence, talent, and excellence, which is my little brainchild. And it's born straight out of the Warrior Teacher Program. It's got everything that business needs to sort this out. And what business needs to sort it out is to ignore it, all of it. They don't need to do any of it. But they do need to recognise some very important things that are going to come into play. And I think the reason that we're going to see people going, well, some of EDI was good. No. It all goes. Okay? I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again. If we are not careful, the left-leaning side of the GC movement will give the shop away. And I'm, for one, I'm not having it. You can... So Let's start the conversation, which Audrey did with a tweet the other day, and which LGBT like, they're starting the conversation. It's time to have it. So here's my input for you in what I hope will be a wide-ranging conversation about why it is absolutely necessary that anything of this nature should be taken out of businesses and organisations, no matter who they are, public sector, charity, or business. This was, at its heart, and always has been, a severe educational problem. The reason that this was allowed to come to the fruition in the first place was because people who were uneducated were allowed to take it on. People say, well, I'm a professional in this particular field. There are no professionals in this field because it hasn't existed for longer than 5 minutes. This has always been about education. It has always been about what people think they know, not what they actually know, and certainly not what they can prove. And even sometimes in the proving, it makes no difference. I think it's important to recognise that, because when this nonsense, this EDI crap first came to fruition years and years ago, educational training, i.e. teacher training, was one of the first places it went. It's an educational problem. And the reason that you can't have EDI and DIE is because EDI and DIE is not an educational undertaking. It's a political and ideological one. And because it's politically and ideologically either hard left or hard right, don't employ blacks, let's look at racism everywhere, right? Which is two sides of the same coin, really, because you've got just as much nastiness in the left as you have in the right. It's not something that business can use and use effectively ever. And they shouldn't be paying for people to go and look up their bums and find out whether they've got any colonial background or slavery links. So it's absolutely insane. So it's an educational problem. Well, our business has got a big problem because education has been screwed for a long time. And it certainly looks from the generations that are coming up and from the conversations I'm having with business leaders and workers across sectors, is that these people are bloody incompetent. They're incompetent because we placed equity above equality of opportunity, and because we placed the nonsense of equalising everything instead of what we should be doing, which is meritocracy, i.e. from post-infants, anything after 12. I don't know nothing about them before that. Anything post-12 is a filtration system. You're going to be good at this, you're going to be good at this, and you're going to be good at that. It's a filtration system. And it's designed to filter people into what they're best and to adapt and allow them to become the best they can be by giving them the equality of opportunity that each child deserves. Education has not been about that for a very long time, and it's going in the wrong direction now, where they're going to lump everybody in together, which means you're going to get the shit kids. I don't mean shit as in, you know, not good intellectually. I mean shit as in behaviourally. They're just bad for various reasons that aren't their fault generally. Until they get to 12, then it's their fault, by the way. Once they've got logic and scientific reasoning, it's their fault. And they have to take responsibility for it, which sticks in the craw for some people. Tough. So you've got educations going on in the way that it's going. Don't know much about what happens before 12, but that should certainly be the majority of it. By rote learning, 2 to 4, Kings of England, all the stuff I said before, get them up the chimneys, keep them out people's way, don't speak in public. Right? That's me, Victorian. 13 years old, drag them all in the classroom and hit them with every horror that humanity's got to offer. I've said this before. And then over a period of time, identify what they're best at and then gradually filter them by the time they get to 14 or 15. In other words, technical college, off you go. You're going to be an academic. You're going to be very good at this. So we need to find multiple ways that people can move forward and get equality of opportunity. You can't get that when you stuff everybody in the same classroom. You can't get that when you take away the ability for parents to send their kids to schools because that child has a very specific need. You can't get it. And then the inevitable knock-on effect of all of this crap that's been going on for the God knows how many years is now beginning to affect business. And business has been quite happy where I could say, well, we train our staff. And they need to stop thinking that's what they're going to do. Business, charities, and public sector, by the way. You're no longer going to train your staff. You're going to have to educate them. You're going to have to educate them because many of them have got an insane mind virus. We know this. And not only are you going to have to educate them, what you're going to have to do is design frameworks that mean you keep these people out in the first place. I'm working on all that. I've got all that. Got it all. I've got the training sessions that they need. I've got everything they need. Right? We're not calling it EDI or DIE. We're going to look at MITE, meritocracy, intelligence, talent, and excellence. That's what we're going to call it. Because once you bring EDI and DIE in, you bring grievance. Once you begin it, because that's what LGBT Alliance was still doing it. We're still talking about it. As if there's some hierarchy of grievance. They were still doing it. The Equality Act builds this in. The Equality Act builds it in. So the Equality, we're going to get rid of the Equality Act or amend it. We're going to have to start writing our own laws. God forbid that we should become self-sufficient in something. At least that would be a start, let alone energy. So we've got a real problem that nobody's addressing. And the real problem from the perspective of business is they've got to start educating their workforce. It's that simple. Not training, educating. And that should be a joint venture between, I think, the business and the individual. Everybody should be learning regularly by now anyway, at least an hour a week. Take something, learn it. Humping giraffes, that'll do, eh? How about learning that? Making cakes. It doesn't really matter what it is. Learn something that you wouldn't normally learn. Engage with something that you normally wouldn't engage with. So we need to start educating. We need a very, very educated populace. Now, many young people are doing incredibly well. Incredibly well. But this is not going to change until we get the ridiculous doctrinaire of the Liberal and Labour pact about education out the way. It isn't going to end. They should never have got rid of the tripartite system. That's what they should have done. I can see that as clear as possible now. I can see it. And the rest of it all gutted up in safe spaces and all learning is in the learner. You don't think this is going to have a knock-on effect to business and organisations? It is. EDI and DIE are the continuation of that drivel. That's why it cannot be saved. It is totally corroded. And at this point, it's metastasized into the industry, which has no place to go but down. It needs to be eradicated altogether. Should never have been HR's business in the first place. Years ago, HR and training weren't connected. They weren't connected. HR and learning weren't connected. It was personnel, and then somebody else take care of the learning. Even when it became HR had no domain over what was taught. They did as they were damn told. The truth is that organisations now, whether they're charities, public or whatever, need to subsume HR under organisational development. And the place should be run by educationists because that's the world where we're going. The single most important thing over the next 50 years is going to be the ability to educate, not just yourself, but others. That's it. And then we all become educators because we have to be, because we live in a world that's absolutely steeped in information and most of it's shit. So we've got to become discerning educators. You don't want to look. We don't sit there peering up our bums, seeing if we can find some link to slavery or the fact that you once farted in a lift containing an Asian. It's absolutely bloody bonkers. And treating minorities like that, it makes me so angry. Well, we're going to look after the LGBTQ people. What makes you think I need looking after? Can you imagine? Especially if I was in a workplace these days, it would never happen because nobody could put up with me. But imagine if I was. Well, we want to make sure you've got a safe space. What the fuck for? Why do I need a safe space? Well, you're gay, aren't you? Yeah, I'm not going to shag anybody here. Right? Same as if you're black or Asian or Chinese. It doesn't really matter what you are. What we should be doing is focusing on education primarily, right across the board, even in business. Because business is going to need educated people that are smart, that can understand everything. They're also going to have to be much more open. Much more open. I've seen that work in companies where the directors come in once a fortnight and tell the staff what's the situation, what's going on, where are we financially, how are we doing. You need to be open, right? You need to start looking at the gap between the top paid and the bottom paid, and that's the one you want to squeeze a bit. That's what we need to do. And we need to consign leftism, and certainly the unions, the way they're behaving, need to be consigned back to the 20th century where they belong. So to LGB Alliance and Audrey and everybody else in the EDI industry that's been part of our fight, you're not going to rehabilitate this. And if you attempt to do so, I imagine there'll be a few people speaking out to stop you. EDI and DIE, or DEI, I prefer DIE. DEI is a corroded, cancerous bubo on the buttock of society. And the sooner it goes, the better. You cannot rehabilitate it. It is impossible to rehabilitate because it psychologically damages an individual. It psychologically damages the individual. It is a psychosocial intervention, and it is basically something therapeutic and, from a cultural perspective, utterly moribund. There is no way that we can possibly make that particular patient better. It dies, and the sooner, the better. Perhaps we can get Yvette Cooper to have a go at that. Let me know what you think. It's MITE. You want to know about MITE? Come talk to me. You want to know how you turn your business into a powerhouse? Come talk to me. You want to know how you stop your staff from being so upset and not happy and mentally ill? You'll come and talk to me. It's time to start separating things out. You go to work, you're not there to be made better. You go to work and to learn how to work, not to be told this is how you should think, and this is the type of thing you need to worry about. We're not going to worry about any of it, because the simple fact of the matter is, if you are an employer, if I'm an employer, I'm employer B, and there I am sat there and I've got 170 employees, and I know that the chances are that the person in front of me is a wokester. I'm not going to employ him. And then I look at it and I think, well, I don't know much about this field, but it seems to me like black people are making a lot of noise. Listen, don't say anything, but if they're black, don't employ them. If they've got a funny name, don't employ them. You're making it worse. And then when they come in, what we're going to do? Well, we need to tell them they've got to be kind to each other. How dare you? How dare you? You teach your staff. You teach them, not train. You educate your staff to think critically, to be critical components of your business that will allow them to be able to say to you, hang on a minute, I might only work in the canteen, but I spend a lot of time learning about, and it occurs to me that this particular thing, that's what you want, innovation, collaboration, movement towards a shared future of success. That's what organizations need. They don't need EDI and DIE and somebody coming around with a bloody telescope and shoving it up your backside. That's what they don't need. We get the psychosocial and the therapeutic out of the workplace, and we do it quickly. If you're not well enough to be in work, go home. There will be no trigger warnings. There will be no safe spaces. End of story. You want to argue about religion? You want to argue? Don't do it here. Do it at home. Go into work to do your job. That's it. End of story. It's time to separate things out. Same for the schools. Get rid of these parasitical industries that sit on the back of organizations and drain them of resources and make their staff ill, mentally ill. It's that simple. EDI dies. It's time for MITE. That's the way forward. Meritocracy, intelligence, talent, and excellence. And you achieve that by having a very broadly well-educated employee base. Then they become your greatest asset, and your success becomes a given. I'll see you later. Buzz off. Bye-bye.